just a moment or two. I would ask you to please take a moment and make sure your phones as well as your watches are either turned off or are in airplane mode.
We are gathered here today to honor the life of Steve Clayman. May his memory be a blessing. We're all gathered to comfort his children, wife, family, grandchildren, Nancy, Amanda, Elise, Tom, Anna, Max, Drew, Maeve, Riley, Katie, Josh, Chelsea. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of Psalm 121, Esa Enai, linking Steve's life with our thousands-year-old tradition of the people Israel. We look to the end of the psalm to link our hopes for Steve in this moment. God guards your coming and your going now and forever. May
Tom's older daughter. Thank you for being here from near and far to give us support, to share stories and memories, and to honor our dad. We are so appreciative and touched. Today I actually feel really blessed and grateful. My mom, my sister, Tom, Drew, Anna, Max, Maeve, and Riley are so incredibly fortunate to have had Dad in our lives. I know it may be hard to feel it today, but all of you are so fortunate too, to have known my dad and to have had the blessing of being in my dad's orbit. It was just the best. Being Steve's daughter was awesome. Don't get me wrong, he could be impossible too, but you don't need to be perfect to be wonderful, and he was wonderful. I want to explain to you from our perspective what made him such a wonderful husband, father, father-in-law, grandfather, uncle, friend, and so much more. I have kept a note on my phone for years called Values from My Father. I would sometimes look at the note when I was making a big life decision, and sometimes just to remind me of what's actually important, what matters. First, my dad valued humor. My dad was so fun and funny and a little crazy. He loved to laugh and to make people laugh. He and my uncle especially were a little crazy together. There are so many fun stories. Not long ago, my dad sent an email reminding us of one of the pranks he played on my uncle. He wrote, "Another terrific one, the Blackberry story. Blackberries were in great demand and Ricky had to get one. I had one, John Manning had one, Ricky was desperate for one. Finally, his came by mail. I intercepted the package, opened it, and inserted into it a note that read something like this. Dear customer, regretfully in our rush to get this phone to you, we find we missed one last quality control initiating task. Please follow the instructions below exactly to initialize your phone. Instructions: 1, turn on your phone. 2, enter the following string of numbers, letters, and symbols exactly. The supposed code was insanely long. Like really long. Like so long no one could ever type it in exactly. The letter went on. 3, if you make a mistake when entering, do not back up. Instead, shut off your BlackBerry, wait 30 seconds, turn it on, and enter the following, quote, correction string exactly. Then perform step 2. The correction string was just as insanely long. The letter concluded, thank you and enjoy your BlackBerry. My dad continues the story of my uncle sitting at his desk trying to type in this crazy nonsense code with John Dodge. But the best part about my dad is it didn't stop there. He actually sat in my uncle's office and proposed he read him the code out loud to see if they could get it right together. When they couldn't, they proceeded to have lunch together and discussed in detail some possible resolutions to the problem. My dad did all of this with a straight face. My dad was just so much fun. Second, my dad really valued intellectual curiosity. He was so smart and he loved to talk about anything and everything. I have a great memory of when I was probably in elementary school of a huge electoral map he made for an election one year that he somehow convinced my mom to let him hang in the kitchen so we could track election results. Friends loved to come to the house to have dinner. He would pose, quote, moral quandaries, end quote, that we would then discuss in detail, often sitting at the table for hours. Later in life, he loved reading and editing my mom's writing. He loved hearing about my sister and my travels, volunteer work, and jobs, and he loved working alongside Drew and Tom in their various ventures. But most of all, he loved hearing from his grandkids about their classes, their interests, and he was always just so curious and engaging. Third, my dad encouraged us to be ourselves and not worry about what other people thought. While my dad did work really hard to give us everything we needed, he really didn't care about how people dressed, what car they drove, or how much money they had, or anything like that. When we were kids, we ate out a lot. On occasion, we would go upscale, like the Colonial Inn in Concord or Chillingsworth and Brewster on the Cape. Without fail, when we arrived to be seated, the host would say, Mr. Clayman, jackets are required in the dining room. My dad hated elitist baloney like that, so he would just refuse, nope, and off he went to the table. I think he loved bucking convention and being his own person about as much as he liked watching my sister and me squirm in embarrassment. He didn't care if you were supposed to do something. He did what he thought was right. And he showed us that you didn't have to be like everybody else. Fourth, and really central to my dad, was how he treated people. He treated everyone with respect. He talked, but even more, he listened. Going to dinner with him sometimes meant he would spend more time talking to the waiter. It always started with, "What's your name? Where are you from?" My dad loved to sit on the park bench on Commonwealth Ave in front of their home and just talk to people. Sometimes I would be sitting with him out there and he would even summon someone. "Hey, come over here. Interesting hat. Where are you from?" He never forgot his Chelsea roots. He was authentically down to earth. He didn't judge, and he genuinely cared about people, especially people who had less than him. He chatted with the homeless guys on Boylston Street. He knew their names. He wanted to know his Uber driver's life story. He was even passing out 50s to the orderlies at MGH just last week to thank them for helping him. Last and most important, my dad loved his family and friends so much. He had 60 wonderful years with my mother, and he really admired her. They sparred and loved openly and had so much fun together. He told her in the hospital towards the end, "You are even more beautiful today than the day I met you." To my dad, this meant on the outside and, more importantly, on the inside. He adored me and my sister. He was so proud of us and loved us beyond. Drew and Tom, the sons he gained through marriage, made him so happy too. He welcomed them to the family without reserve. Sometimes my sister and I thought he maybe loved them more than us, but that was okay. They certainly did give him a lot less trouble and cost him a lot less. He loved his brother Richie deeply, having breakfast with him every morning of their adult lives. After Richie died in 2013, he really missed him, and he stepped in for Kate as her second father, mentoring her and loving her and her family. Most of all, he simply adored his grandchildren. They were the lights of his life, but not in some be seen but not heard way. He loved them for them and relished in all of their uniqueness. He listened to them. He didn't impose his will or his ideas on what they should do or be. The back door of my parents' house in the Back Bay was his door of pride. College acceptance letters, published articles, homework assignments, team photos and awards, thank you notes and drawings. And I know each one of them is better, stronger, and kinder for having had my dad as their pop. My dad and mom shared such important values with us, giving our family deep and meaningful roots. We will miss him so much, but there is no doubt in my mind that his memory is a blessing. We are so grateful for the roots, for the values, for having been in his orbit.
This has been really hard, but looking out at all of your faces and chatting with some of you before the service has been really special. This gathering of people from all over the country here because we all loved my dad. Thank you for making the effort to be here today. But if my dad were here, watching my sister and I side by side in the middle of the week, he'd say, "Don't you have jobs?" He'd roll his eyes at everyone's tears and say, "Jesus, enough already." My dad had a great run. Everyone here knows he was loyal, brilliant, irreverent, curious, brash, deeply kind, and hysterically funny. He loved breakfast with his bagel bin crew, stopping by Bartley's for a burger and a wave to Josh, sitting in the nook in his home in Boston sipping his tepid coffee, kayaking on Cape Cod, talking real estate with his sons-in-law, going out to dinners, basketball games, and the symphony with so many of you, his friends who were like his family to him. Amanda talked about my dad's core values, how they rooted us and provided us with a soft landing when we needed one. And while that's all true, there's another side to how we were raised. Anyone who's a parent, especially a Jewish father, knows that encouraging your kids to take risks is not a parent's natural instinct. The things we did, backpacking through Asia, driving Uncle Ricky's unregistered, uninsured Carmen Dia to McDonald's, skydiving, parasailing, and motorcycling through Africa, though I don't actually think he knew about that one, I don't know. I know this was torture for him, but I also know that it made him deeply proud. On some level, my dad would have loved for my sister and I to settle right here in Boston and never to leave. And I recognize how hard my dad had to work to not only tolerate, but to encourage Amanda and I to lean into things that are hard and scary. As much as he may have hated it, he drove us to the airport, tucked a sawbuck in our pocket, and waved us off over and over again. I think this was his greatest gift to us. I looked through my dad's phone and texts, my dad's phone these past weeks while he was in the hospital and in hospice. Years and years of text exchanges and photos. I read a text exchange my dad and I had in 2021. I wrote, "We closed on the house. We fly into Logan in June. Drew will drive separately with the dog. We can't wait to live closer to you." His reply, "Fabulous news. Don't you dare move here for us, though." And then later that day, "I will fly out and drive back with Drew. Send me the dates." That was my dad, thrilled to have us close, but adamant that we spread our wings and live our best lives. It wasn't just Amanda and I. He encouraged my mom to go back to grad school when few women did this. He encouraged our annual RV trips, even though he thought we were insane, which we were totally bonkers. They were bonkers, yeah. And he was deeply proud of her writing. To my mom, while these past weeks have been so sad and so hard, they have honestly been some of the best of my life. We laughed so much, it is demented how much we laughed. You are so strong, so gentle, and funny in your own right. You and Dad modeled a lifetime of laughter and loyalty and of loving each other with such tenderness, even when you wanted to kill each other. We'll be forever grateful to have witnessed your partnership. And Mama, I'm going off script. This is out of your playbook, but I know that the next weeks, months, and years will be so hard, but I just want you to look around at all these people here and know that you're gonna have a lot of weeps and be really lonely, but we've got you. When you need us, we've got you. Finally, to the other loves of Poppy's life, his grandchildren. When Anna and Max were born in Chicago, my parents rented an apartment there. They decided the longest they could tolerate between visits to their grandkids was 6 weeks. And even when Maeve and then RJ were born in San Francisco, a very long 6-hour flight from Boston, as some of you know from being here today, they saw each of their grandkids at least every 6 weeks. Anna, Max, Maeve, and Riley, you brought unending joy and pride to your Poppy. Anna. In looking through Pop's phone recently, I read some of your text exchanges. And as soon as I just read that, I realized that's like a total invasion of privacy, but like, I read all of your text exchanges, so like, some of you guys are crazy. Sorry about that. Anyway, you guys texted a lot. A lot. The depth of your relationship, the humor, the warmth, and the connection was heartfelt and authentic. Poppy, like you, loved learning. Recently, when you spoke enthusiastically about a class you were taking, Poppy found an adult education class through Stanford with the same professor. He was fascinated by the topic, but even more than that, he wanted to understand your passions and perspectives. He wanted to be part of your sphere. You inspired him. He loved your intellectual pursuits and bragged about having to look up a word in an article that you'd authored. When you did all of the crazy shit that you do, flying off to Bangalore, protesting at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, Poppy did that thing with his tongue where he pushes his tongue into his cheek that he does when he's concerned. But he so admired your sense of adventure, your drive, and your passion to live life to the fullest. Max, do you remember when all of us came to Middlebridge to watch your basketball game, and afterward you showed us around campus? As we were leaving that day, walking to the car, I distinctly remember Poppy saying to me, "He is the bravest person that I know." You went to boarding school at 14. You chose a college in Florida even though you got into schools right here in Boston. And Poppy, well, I know he wanted you close, so admired this about you. You lean into hard things with grit and a kind of shocking, irreverent humor that I think Poppy could really appreciate. Going to Huskies, Red Sox, and Celtics games with you was one of the greatest joys of his life. He simply loved being in your presence. Maeve. Poppy loved Cape Cod, and he's so delighted in your love and appreciation of a place that was so special to him. In his phone, when I was invading everybody's privacy, I found a photo of you from 2018. You would have been 7. You were in neck-deep water in Brewster, holding a monster horseshoe crab over your head. I remember multiple scenes where you would leap off a paddleboard into water well over your head and come up holding some enormous sea creature. Poppy would look on adoringly, so proud of your guts and athleticism. Last summer, when we dropped you off at camp in the middle of nowhere in Vermont, where you proceeded to be one of very few kids to pass the test to earn your hunting licenses, both bow and rifle, by the way, I sent him a photo of this with you holding your certificate. His reply, "That kid is amazing. That kid is amazing. She'll try fucking anything." He was literally in awe of you. Riley. When COVID hit and schools shut down, you were only in kindergarten. We were living in a 600 square foot apartment in San Francisco, and Dad and I were as shell-shocked as the rest of the country, trying to figure out how to work, educate you and Maeve, and simply survive. Poppy started FaceTiming you for hours each day, and you'd disappear into your room with Poppy on the iPad. Sometimes we heard cackling laughter, sometimes some crashing and some banging, mostly just chatting. Occasionally, Poppy would send us something to print for you. I don't know what you guys were doing. I don't know, worksheets, stories you'd written, and what seemed to be a lot of bingo cards that you guys made together. We're not sure. This went on for months. And then one night, while reading to you, you decided you would read to us instead. Dad and I thought this was really cute because you couldn't read. You were only in kindergarten, right? And schools had shut down. You could barely recognize your letters. But lo and behold, you read Curious George Goes to the Doctor cover to cover. And then you read all of the many books Poppy had sent to you over the months. Rebel Girls, She Persisted, A is for Activist. You got Poppy through the pandemic, and Poppy taught you to read. You are now a voracious and curious reader, just like your Poppy. And that time with him, locked in your tiny bedroom over the iPad, was one of the greatest pleasures of his life. My dad always told his grandkids, "You can be anything you want." He said it so much that we all rolled our eyes, but he meant it. As Riley said in her last words to him over video, played in the hospital and then hospice, by the way, about 8,000 times, she said, "Poppy, you always say we can be whatever we want. Well, I'm going to do that. Thank you so much for that." Thanks.
Thank you so much for those beautiful words. In spending time with the family these last few days, I got a few more memories that I can share with you all, but I know the family would like you all to keep sharing your memories, especially today. There will be some opportunities to share at the luncheon, so you can think about your favorite stories and continue to share them as you continue to remember him. Steve Clayman was born September 5th, 1942 in Boston. He was a city guy, proudly raised in Chelsea, going to Chelsea Public Schools, running track, and maybe playing basketball. We'll never know. He continued on to Tufts, majoring in electrical engineering, and then to the prestigious Tuck School of Business, getting his MBA at Dartmouth in New Hampshire. During his time in New Hampshire, it was so rural that as a true city guy, he was a little scared driving there. However, there he met his wife, Nancy, in Hanover on a blind date. She was a nurse. She recalled to me what she liked about him on their first date. He was smart, funny, warm, intense, driven, and worldly. Being from New Hampshire, they were total opposites, but they married in 1968 and then raised their kids in Concord, Massachusetts. Steve held family as the most important thing in his life, as we heard. His dad was a pharmacist, and they were very much alike. He would go after school to the pharmacy. He was also really close with his brother. Wow, what a prank. 5 years younger. They were best friends and partners in business. After working in the startup world and in executive recruiting, he, along with Richie, started a real estate company and bought and managed buildings and communities. He loved so many things about his business: the people, the math, the challenges, figuring out if something was a good deal. He was the detail man. And Excel spreadsheets. Very important to him. In fact, he was still making Excel spreadsheets up until very recently on a variety of topics. He was raised to work, and that was a big source of joy. He loved being at the office and was a significant mentor to his sons-in-law, Tom and Drew. He never really retired at age 82. They never fought in the family business. While working with family members is not always easy, this is significant to note. Despite having a strong personality, he passed on the responsibilities so gracefully to Tom, mentoring everyone around him, letting his family members truly shine. Judaism was really important to him, especially the jokes. I loved hearing about him drinking coffee in the parking lot right outside here because high holiday services were just too long. He led wonderful seders and family holidays. His cultural and ethnic identity of being Jewish was so important. The ideals, emphasis on family, education, a good pastrami sandwich, being there for people, and the ethics. He loved Israel and always wanted to go back. He asked his family about the hostages in all of these months, especially his granddaughter, Anna. Steve was a true mensch. Shepsel ben Abraham Vahana. Your legacy lives on in your wonderful family. Though you are gone, your soul continues in the stories of your wife, children, grandchildren, and friends and family here today, sharing memories as we continue celebrating his life. I'd like to share a song that we talked about was one of his favorites from said high holidays. But it really encompasses our wish for him. Hashkivenu is a prayer that we say as we lie down at night to spread the shelter of peace over us, and that is so fitting that the family chose that prayer to share today, as those are our wishes for him. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom v'hamidinu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom v'hamidinu Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. At this time, we will all rise for the memorial prayer. El Malay Rachamim Shochein Bameromim Hamseh Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanafei HaShekhinah B'ma'alot kedoshim utorim kezohar harakia mashirim et nishmat Shapsal ben Abraham v'Chana shehalach le'olamo v'gan Eden tehei menuchato Ana ba'al harachamim hasirehu b'seter kenafecha le'olamim utzror b'tzror hachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar amen. El Malay Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of our loved one who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that he find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And we all say, Amen. You can be seated. Before we conclude with the Kaddish prayer, we want to include a prayer for those who are in need of healing today. We are sad, we are broken, we are feeling so many feelings, those in this room and those outside. And so we wanted to include a Misha Berach, which I know is really important to the family. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of At this time, we will rise and join together in the mourner's Kaddish. You'll notice that at the end of the Kaddish is a prayer for peace, Oseh Shalom. So I'll ask that you remain standing and echo that sentiment with me after we conclude the Kaddish prayer. I believe you have the words in your pamphlet, if you'd like to join. Yit gadal v'yit gadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra pirtei ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'gala u'bizman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudasha b'reichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'yimru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim alinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom alinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. As we close this service, we want to pray for peace, as we just said the words, Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru Amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael.
On behalf of the family, we'd like to thank you all for joining with them today. If you'll please note in the pamphlets you received when you entered, donations in Steve's memory may be made to Middle Bridge School or to Jewish Family and Children's Services of San Francisco. At this time, the family welcomes you all to join them at a luncheon. It'll be immediately following on the other side of the wall behind us, so the rear doors will be open. You're welcome to please join the family in there and share stories, and this would be your opportunity to pay your respects to them as well. In addition, the family will be sitting Shiva on Thursday from 4 to 8 p.m. at the home of Amanda and Tom. At this time, I'm going to ask the honorary pallbearers to please come forward. The family is going to follow behind the casket as we escort it out. Once the family has left the synagogue, the rest of you are welcome to please follow behind and join us in the room next door.
The lunch table is now open if you'd like to help yourselves.